Good evening. Welcome to the sixth episode of the Bronx Bomber Blog Podcast. My name is Bryan Peng, and I'm joined this evening by Phil Akre as well as Matt Cote. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
What up, Brad?
All right. So obviously, the biggest news that came out of last night was the David Price deal. David Price was signed by the Boston Red Sox, our nemesis, our enemy, for 7 years, $217 million, and with an opt-out for the player after 3 years. Matt, let's get your initial reaction on this as a Red Sox fan and as just a baseball fan in general.
Well, as a Red Sox fan, I'm ecstatic, obviously. He just got the best pitcher on the market, something they desperately needed. As a baseball fan, it's not really a huge shock to see a huge name go to a big market club. The Red Sox have been rumored to be in on Price from, I'd say basically from the time Dave Dombrowski was hired back in mid-August until now. It was really between them, the Cubs. The Dodgers and Giants were rumored to get into it, but they're fighting over Zach Greinke. The Blue Jays never really had a shot. They were never going to spend that type of money. And once, the Cubs kind of came out there and said, we're not spending the big money, it really, to me, I thought it was almost a foregone conclusion that he was going to go to Boston. Looks like St. Louis got really close, which they kind of, came from the back of the pack. But it's a good baseball city. People really seem to like to play there. So it doesn't surprise me. It surprises me how high their offer actually went. I guess it was like around 190, 195. But I think it's definitely good for the Red Sox. Obviously, they get their stud pitcher. They certainly need to do some more things this offseason, but Dombrowski and Mike Hazen have been as consistent as they said. They said they needed a closer, a fourth outfielder, and a starting pitcher. They're 3 for 3 on that angle, so they're doing big things. I don't think they're going to be done for a while, but it's definitely not great news for the Yankees, having to face him probably 4 or 5 times over the next 7 years. But I guess they can, take solace in the fact that, their arch rival just spent $250 million on somebody. So there's that.
Yeah, Phil, do you have a take on this? What's your initial
Yeah, I think a lot of the people were bashing it from the Yankees standpoint because it's like, oh, Boston spent too much money. But for me, I think it's a really good signing. Yeah, he's 30 years old, but it's David Price, and all along the Red Sox have been saying that they needed their ace and they needed that number one starter, not just a bunch of backup. They're not backup guys, but not ace guys like Wade Miley, Porcello, all them. And it's so much money, but I think Dombrowski, he kind of felt he had to make this move. And I think it's good. Obviously from a Yankee fan standpoint, it's going to suck having to face him for so long, but it's not the end of the world. Overall, I think it's pretty good. Boston needed to do it, and they did it,
Yeah, my initial thought is that I'm happy the Yankees didn't spend that much. And, we all saw what happened with CC Sabathia. Our very own Scott Landry wrote an article comparing the CC signing to David Price signing. I don't think that's as fair as he made it out to be. I think David Price is, for the price tag that he got, I think he will be a good pitcher for the next 3 years if he chooses to opt out, or for the next 7. So good deal for the Red Sox. Hoping the Yankees bats can come alive against him and not be like against Dallas Keuchel, where they did not score a run off of him in 2 or 3 appearances last year. It was a nightmare.
So,
all right.
Brian, would you say the Price is right?
Well, I hope that I was asking, obviously, within the BBB writers last night, how many World Series do you think that he has to win for the Red Sox in order for you to say that price was worth it? So maybe you can answer this now.
They definitely need to win 1.
Right.
Preferably, I think if you can get 2, that's fine. Anything over that, you can be the best team in baseball and you can still not win the World Series. Right. I personally don't believe the Kansas City Royals were the best team in baseball this year, but they won the World Series. In 2008, one of the biggest things about David Price, people always were jawing about is his lack of postseason success. And there's some merit to that. In 7 starts, he's 0-7, but he does have 2 relief wins. In 2008, in my opinion, the Boston Red Sox were the best team in baseball. They were even better than the Phillies. But in Game 7 of the ALCS, David Price came out of the bullpen and shut them down, and Tampa Bay went on to the World Series. They ended up losing to Philly. So he's definitely been in high-leverage situations. He knows the AL East from all his years with Tampa. Finished this year with the Toronto Blue Jays. He is out of this world numbers at Fenway Park, which, I mean, is impressive being, you know, how small a park it is. It's definitely more beneficial to hitters than it is pitching. So, yeah, I mean, I love the signing, personally. You know, money's money. They didn't lose a draft pick to do it. They didn't have to give away any of their top prospects. It's just money. Yeah. And, you know, they have plenty of it. So, and it was a need. It's not like they signed, you know, I'll use Rick Porcello last year to an $80 million extension before he ever threw a pitch for the club. You know, it wasn't a glaring need. David Price was a glaring need in this rotation. They absolutely needed him. You know, and off of Scott's article, you know, he and I had a little bit of jawing back and forth about this. I don't think the CC comparison is, you know, quite spot on, but there are a few similarities. One of the biggest things that I think makes them different is CC Sabathia was a huge out of shape man. David Price is about as, you know, good an athlete as you're going to be able to find out there. Now, that doesn't have anything to do with elbow issues. You know, that's going to happen when you throw a ball 95 miles an hour. Human arm's not designed to do that. But, you know, it's a good signing all the way around. And, you know, from a Yankees perspective, it might even heat up the rivalry a little bit more.
Oh,
so, you know, maybe – I'm not saying they're going to go out there and, you know, go get Zach Greinke by any means, but, you know, maybe they do. You know, Brian, we've harped about this for months now. Phil's a little new, so he doesn't know. But, I mean, we've been harping for them to trade Brett Gardner and bring in, like, a Justin Upton since the end of the season, since even before that. So, you know, that would definitely be fun. You know, you got to fight power with power, and Justin Upton definitely would provide that off David Price.
All right, yeah. So with Price with Price off the market, Zimmerman off the market, Greinke looking like going to the West Coast either with the Dodgers or the Giants. The primary market, or the first tier of free agency for pitching is probably gone to the Yankees. If they would like a new starting pitcher, which they should be getting, obviously, it is on my list of priorities, probably at the top. They'll probably have to look at probably the second-tier pitchers, and that includes pitchers like Scott Kazmir, Wei-Yin Chen, Doug Fister, Shelby Miller, Jeff Samardzija. Well, Shelby Miller's with the Braves right now, but there is interest between the Yankees and the Braves to strike a deal. So, Phil, what's your initial take? Which you know, pitchers would you consider looking at, and which pitchers do you think they could even trade for free agency or by the market or trading?
Well, I think they should definitely go free agency, right? Well, no, I'll take that back. I think they should definitely look at the options of free agency, but I think the options in the trade market are better right now. I mean, the reports about the Shelby Miller, he's a great pitcher and all, but like the report said that they asked for Luis Severino, and there's just no way the Yankees should give him up for him. Don't get me wrong, Miller's young, he's controllable talent, but Severino's younger, and he showed a lot of promise in his first year. I know it wasn't that many starts, but I mean, you take out his one really bad start against Toronto, and I mean, dude, he was fantastic. I mean, his whole call-up. And, I mean, trade market, obviously, like in previous articles and stuff on the blog, you know, there's Carlos Carrasco, Sonny Gray, Danny Salazar, a bunch of those trade ideas. I think I'd like to see them go for Salazar or Carrasco. I think that'd be a really great grab. I don't think they'd have to give up too much for him or for one of them. I mean, obviously, Brett Gardner's been talked, like you guys said, for the outfield. I think they could definitely strike a deal, throw in some more pieces for something like that. But if Brian Cashman chooses to do the free agency route, I think he should try for Kazmir, obviously because he's a lefty, and the Yankees don't really have a reliable lefty. Because, I mean, you really can't call CC reliable at this point.
Well, he's still in rehab, I think.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. But, you know, I mean, he showed some sort of, like, rejuvenation towards the end of last year, but I mean, he's old. You know, we know what his case is. But Kazmir would be good, but I think it'd be better to go for Chen, to be honest with you, because he's proven in the AL East. The only thing I think that's bad is that his agent is Scott Boras, and he's going to be asking for the top dollar. And also the Yankees would lose the draft pick if they sign him because he's tied to that. So I think it's kind of like free agency, like the cons of that outweigh the pros of trade routes. So I think the definite choice should be trades for the Yankees.
Yeah, the news out of Samardzij's the camp or himself, he says he's got a deal for $100 million on the table, and
it just seems crazy.
Whether or not that's just leverage for other teams, I'm not sure. Number one, I'm hoping the Yankees are not that team that give $100 million.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously, it's looking like it's going to be a five-year, $20 million deal, not 4 years, because that seems like it's too high. 4 years, 25 doesn't make sense to me. 5 years, 20 makes more sense. Either way, I don't support that kind of money given to a pitcher like Samardzija. And the problem with, as you brought up, Phil, is that Chen and Samardzija are kind of considered the more higher up in the second tier of pitching.
Yeah.
So, if Samardzija is asking for that or has on us, Chen is going to get that much, and I don't think the Yankees should be giving Wynn $100 million.
Yeah.
For however number of years, five or six or whatever. So.
That's why I'm saying the trade route is probably the best way to go.
Yeah. Matt, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, well, one name, Brian, you did leave out when you started was Johnny Cueto's still on the market. Now, I don't think the Yankees are going to sign him.
No, I haven't connected at all.
Entertain the idea. I'm just saying,
I got you.
Top-tier pitcher going, he's still out there.
Yeah.
If I'm the Yankees, Kazmir is probably the guy for me. I think he's going to be the best financial investment. You're going to get the best bang for your buck if you're going free agency. I'm not a huge Wei-Yin Chen fan, Brian. I'm sorry. I know he's your countryman and all. Don't get mad at me. I've never, even in his Baltimore days, he's thrown, 7 shutout innings and, made the best lineups in the league look terrible before. But then I've seen him implode way too many times, and especially in Yankee Stadium. He would just scare the heck out of me. Jeff Samardzija, to me, I really don't think it's the Yankees that have that $100 million, but that just screams like a stupid, idiotic Brian Cashman decision. Like, I'm not going to be surprised at all if Jeff Samardzija ends up in the Bronx. And that would be, as a Red Sox fan, it's hilarious. But, as a fan of baseball, it's a horrible, horrible combination. Because you're best served if Jeff Samardzija is your number 3 or your number 2. And honestly, not knowing what you're going to get out of Masahiro Tanaka next year, Jeff Samardzija could be your 1. I think Luis Severino eventually is going to develop into that number 1 pitcher, but for right now, he's still too young. On the trade market, I'm pretty much going to hit on everybody that Phil said. He mentioned Sonny Gray. That's just not happening.
No.
Sonny Gray's not getting moved. Not only that, I don't even think the Yankees could put together a package that would – I don't even think Billy Beane would take Judge, Severino, and Bird and Mateo right now for Gray. That's how, ridiculous the asking price is. Wow. That might make him listen for sure. The 2 guys from Cleveland, Carrasco and Salazar, I love them both. I'm huge, huge Danny Salazar fan. I really think he's going to be a future superstar in this league. Last that I heard, the asking prices were pretty big. Both of those guys. I definitely think, the Indians could use an outfielder. So, throwing Brett Gardner into a deal there makes sense. But you're going to have to give up one of Judge, Bird, and Severino. I would probably do Bird personally. And then, you can maybe filter it out with some lower-level prospects, maybe throw in somebody and take some cash off of Cleveland's hands. But Cleveland's not just going to let both of them go, especially Carrasco, who's ridiculously cost-controlled right now. I think Shelby Miller would be a phenomenal Yankee. I think that move would be great, but obviously giving up Luis Severino for him, that's not an option right now. It's just not a fair deal. You'd have to try and come to another agreement there. But that one for me would definitely be fun because Shelby Miller and Joe Kelly are the best of friends, and they were best men at each other's weddings. Little factoid there. So I think that would be really funny seeing them pitch against each other in, some meaningful baseball in the dog days of summer, for instance. But if I'm the Yankees, I think right now Scott Kazmir is the guy that I try and focus on. If you miss on him, then I'd maybe look at Jeff Samardzija before I even look at Wei-Yin Chen, assuming you don't have to pay $100 million for him, and then move my way onto the trade market if nothing's there. But I definitely think they should, at least get another starter because you got to get rid of some of the dead weight, i.e. Ivan Nova.
Yeah, right now I think we projected the starting rotation last time with me and Steven on the fifth podcast, but you just can't have John start. I would consider even starting CC over Nova just because of how CC looked at the end of last year, potentially getting back.
We don't know what the deal with CC is right now. That's the thing.
Right.
He looked good at the end of last year. I mean, he looked real good. Actually, it was
pleasant to see. I'm assuming that his personal health will get back to normal, and
well, yeah, I mean that's
something that
different. I mean, we just for his personal sake, just hope that works itself out, and then we'll worry about baseball with him.
Yeah. In terms of Casimir, Chen, and all those free agents, Casimir worries me just because of how he performed at the end of last year with Houston. Didn't particularly end the year well. Didn't even last 5 innings in, I think, 4 of his last 7 starts. Gave up a bunch of earned runs. And Chen, while reliable and, has proved himself in the East, I don't see particularly dominant stuff in him. He's kind of a pitcher that just gets by and, maybe goes 7 innings, 2 or 3 earned runs. I don't think he'd be good.
That's nothing to sneeze at right there.
No, I know what you mean. I just don't think he'd be good.
It's the 5 runs in 6 innings that worries me with him.
Right, exactly. Because those happen. But one name that does come out strike to me is Doug Fister. And I think Matt and I both agree that we do like Fister. But he didn't play too well last year. I'm hoping if we sign him, he can get back to those 13, 14, 15 win seasons that he had. But right now, if I had to pick between Casimir and Chen, I'd actually go with Chen.
I mean, just quickly on Fister, I think one benefit is he's a ground ball pitcher. He's a sinker ball pitcher. That definitely bodes well pitching in Yankee Stadium where pop flies turn into upper decker home runs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So our next topic actually transitions away from the starting pitching and focuses on Brett Gardner. And this is a question from the mailbag that I know Scott Landry wrote an article on, but I wanted to hear your guys' take on it. And so I'll ask you, Phil, first. Under what circumstances should the Yankees trade Brett Gardner?
As it goes without saying, really starting pitching. I mean, a few weeks ago, I think that report came out from Mark Fizand of the Daily News saying that the Yankees were in talk to try and get Starlin Castro in just a straight-up swap for Brett Gardner. But at first I was excited for that. Like, I thought it would have been cool. But then I kind of realized, like, if you're going to trade a valuable chip like Brett Gardner, you really should get starting pitching in return. And I feel like to get someone like we were talking about, like Carrasco or Salazar, you wouldn't be able to just swap Gardner straight up for one of them. Like, no way. So you'd have to at least throw in one or more pieces. But I think the time is now to trade Gardner. I mean, at his usual second half decline happened again this year. He was an all-star in the first half. He was great. But I think right now you have to get rid of him. He has a reasonable contract. And as we already said, and as people know, there's a bunch of free agent option outs there. Not a lot, I mean a bunch, but Upton, you got the Cespedes, and you have the trade market if you have to go there. But I think Gardner, he's one of my favorite Yankees, no doubt. He's definitely a leader in the clubhouse, and it'd be tough to trade him. It's not like Cashman wants to trade him, but I think right now you could definitely sell high. Well, not necessarily high, but you could get something valuable in return for him, like a starting pitcher.
Right. I believe that earlier we believed that Seattle would be a potential landing spot for Gardner, but that doesn't seem to be happening considering that
they acquired 2.
Aoki, and then I think we signed Franklin Gutierrez to
and traded for Leonis Martin.
Yeah, Martin. Yep.
So that doesn't look like it's going to happen. Let me ask you guys, in terms of outfielding, if Gardner were to be replaced, who would you like to see? Hayward, Upton, or Gordon? And whoever wants to take it first can go ahead.
Like, not considering contracts, or
consider contracting. I think that's probably a good idea.
Okay. I personally, I'd go with Upton. Obviously Hayward's younger, but he's going to require a massive deal that I just don't think the Yankees should shell out right now. Gordon's actually an interesting fit for me, but don't think he's $100 million player, which is what he's trying to get at right now. With Upton, you're going to get a nice right-handed power bat in your lineup to complement A-Rod power hitters from the right side of the plate, because the rest of the Yankees lineup is pretty left-handed heavy. Especially if Brett Gardner is still there, which if you're signing Upton, he probably won't be.
No.
Upton would definitely be the guy that I'd go with. I think he would be a really good fit in that lineup. He's going to stretch the lineup out. It makes that lineup a little bit harder to get through. He's still relatively young. He's a good athlete. He's a decent outfielder. Playing left field at Yankee Stadium, he's not going to have to cover a tremendous amount of ground because he's got a guy named Jacoby Ellsbury who's as fast as the wind playing next to him. So I think Upton would definitely be my choice. I think he's going to benefit the Yankees on both sides of the ball, offensively and defensively.
Phil, what's your take? Not Gardner, Upton, Hayward, or Gordon?
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with Matt on all those points. I love Upton. I think that he's be the best fit. I wrote the Fact or Fiction article a few weeks back, and I said that the rumor was the Yankees are going to sign him, and I said fact, and I really think that might happen. I think it's a very likely possibility that Gardner will be traded, and I really don't think that the Yankees are confident right now in handing over the starting left field spot to Aaron Hicks. I mean, I'm not discounting him as a player, but that's what I'm saying. He's the backup. He's taking over for Chris Young, despite what Cashman says about him being ready to start. It's just not true. He's a great player, in his own right, but he's not a starter, especially when you have the options on the open market like Upton. He's only 28. He's a good, solid power hitter, and when you consider he played at Petco Park in San Diego, which is really a pitcher's park, just imagine what he could do at Yankee Stadium. He's not the greatest defensively, but again, it's not really the biggest of worries when he kind of balances out the lineup, like Matt said. And also, as Matt said, Hayward's going to cost way too much money. He's younger, but the money is just going to turn the Yankees off, I think. And Cespedes, I think that he might be I don't think he's going to be a bust, but I don't think he might live up to his contract because he's a little inconsistent at times. But I really do think Upton's the best choice if Gardner's traded, which I think will happen.
Yeah, I'll just argue in favor of Alex Gordon here. I know I didn't want to repeat your guys' argument for Justin Upton. For me, Hayward is I'm staying away from Hayward. If he wants $100 million and he hits 13 home runs a year, I'm not taking him. He doesn't.
Wants $200 million, not $100 million.
He wants $200 million. I misheard you. My bad. Then yeah, I totally stay away from him. Gordon obviously is a little bit older at 31, so hopefully if the Yankees get him on a 3-year deal, and obviously on average a cheaper contract, I think SpotTrack has him at around $13 million of market value. So hopefully, 3 years.
He's looking for $5 and $100.
5 and $100. Alex Gordon, is that what he's looking for?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, given that he'll be at 35 and 36. But when I look at Gordon and Hayward's numbers, they're almost identical. I guess Hayward hits more doubles, but that's because Hayward played almost a full season. Gordon only played 100 games. So if I had to choose between Hayward or Gordon, I'd go with Gordon. Justin Upton for me, too expensive, I think.